I first saw the profile at 2:43 a.m., the username looked strangely familiar. My son had sent the link with trembling hands. Dad, I think Mom's been posting there for years. That morning, in the dim glow of my laptop screen, I watched lines of posts, compliments to her lover, secret signs, hidden references to moments we had together, twisted, coded. I felt my chest clamp tight. Then something tiny changed everything. I've always thought my marriage to Clara was rock solid. We had 38 years of memories, our first house in our 30s, supporting her through health scares, raising our son, quiet weekends gardening. She'd volunteer at the community center, and I worked in regional logistics. We aged together. But I never saw the fracture growing beneath. Flashback, 15 years ago. I first sensed a crack when she began taking community meetings in the evening. I'd come home hoping for dinner, but she'd vanished to the basement, lights off. I asked about it, and she said she was organizing events. I swallowed suspicion. Then came the changes, and the phone she always carried became secretive. She started using a second messaging app one didn't know. Texts vanished. Her laugh would falter mid-sentence when my son walked in. Little red flags I ignored. Back in the present, I sat on the edge of the bed. My heart pounded. I opened the forum page again. I recognized her handle, a pseudonym she'd used in a private neighborhood group years ago. She posted rhapsodic comments about freedom, electric touch, new beginnings. I could almost hear her words. Why would she hide this? Sleep fled me. I scribbled a timeline in my journal, and when she started slipping away, when messages started, when I felt empty. My son came in, eyes red, voice trembling. I'm sorry, Dad. I found this last week, but I waited until I was sure. He showed me the evidence, archive screenshots, timestamped posts, digital breadcrumbs, dating back nearly a decade. He confronted her twice, and she denied for weeks. Then she begged him not to tell me. But he couldn't live with the lie anymore. I closed my eyes and tried to recall every late meeting, every whispered phone call. The weight of betrayal sank in. The woman I trusted whispered her love to another. I walked downstairs to the kitchen. A favorite coffee mug sat on the counter. Steam curled in the early light. I touched one, the rim chipped, still there after all these years. So mundane. I wondered, what else about our life had been a lie? I typed a single message to her account, why, Clara? But no response came. Something was coming, and I was about to start unraveling her double life, piece by painful piece. The message stayed unread for days. I kept checking, even though I knew she wouldn't reply, not there. That account, that alias, was a version of Clara I didn't recognize. A woman who laughed at inside jokes with someone else. A woman who wrote, "He's asleep upstairs. I'm downstairs with you in my heart." That sentence played on a loop in my mind. I'm downstairs with you in my heart. I started retracing our recent years. Not just the big events, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, but the in-between moments. The quiet Saturdays she said she was at committee brunches, the late-night Zoom planning calls with her group. I thought she was just being active in retirement. But something else stood out. She had changed the way she dressed. More vibrant colors, occasional makeup for meetings, not flashy, but just intentional. At the time, I thought maybe she was rediscovering herself. I had no idea she was being rediscovered by someone else. That afternoon, she walked in like any other day, reusable bag in hand, talking about a neighbor's dog who got loose. I watched her. Watched the way she avoided my eyes, the nervous tug she gave to her sleeve. I wanted to say everything. I didn't. Instead, I asked her, "Did you see Jeremy today?" "A son." She froze for a breath, then said, "No, why?" "Just wondering." She smiled, the same one she gave strangers. Not the real one. That night, I found another post from her account. It was dated 2 years back. She had written about a man in her life who didn't see her anymore. That line tore through me. I thought I had been seeing her every day. Every meal, every car ride, every walk through the garden. She'd mentioned Gavin, too, never by name, always as G. She described him as understanding, curious, the only person who asked about her favorite novels. That stung deeper than I'd admit. She used to read me poetry in our early years. I didn't realize she stopped until she started reading it to someone else. I needed to know more about him. I had the username he used to comment on her posts. I searched it. What I found made my stomach twist. He had posted on parallel forums, same tone, same timelines. His words echoed hers, as she's more alive with me than she ever was with him. The audacity. The cruelty. I scrolled through his posts, connecting dots. He lived 2 states over. They had met in person multiple times, hotels, conferences, once even during a family vacation. She told me she needed space that week and went to visit her cousin. I stayed home and painted the deck. There was a post from 4 months ago. It started with, "She almost left him last week." I told her I'm ready whenever she is. I sat in my chair and didn't move for an hour. Had she really thought about leaving me? I checked our joint savings. Nothing unusual. But her personal account, she had started transferring small amounts. Weekly. Always under $400. Not enough to trigger bank notifications, but consistent. Almost surgical. She was building a nest for someone else. The next evening, I told her I was meeting an old friend from work. She nodded, distracted, scrolling through something on her phone. I walked 3 blocks to Jeremy's house instead. He answered the door before I knocked. "Dad," he said, voice low. I didn't know what else to do. I sat in his living room. He showed me everything. The full archive, messages, posts, screenshots. Dates matched family events. On our 30th anniversary trip to the coast, she had posted a picture of the beach, and captioned it, "Wish I were here with you, G." I had held her hand that day. She looked so at peace. I remember thinking, maybe we're finally hitting our golden years. I was wrong. Jeremy looked pale. I asked her if it was physical, he said. She didn't answer. But I think, yeah. It was. I didn't speak. Just nodded. Then I asked him for a copy of everything. I needed to be prepared. The next morning, Clara asked if I wanted to go to the local arts fair. I stared at her. I wondered how many versions of her existed. The woman I married. The woman Jeremy exposed. The woman Gavin whispered to. I said yes. At the fair, she bought a candle, cedar and leather scent, my favorite. She smiled and kissed my cheek. For a moment, I wondered if she felt anything at all. If guilt touched her. Or if this had become so normal, so ingrained, she no longer knew what truth tasted like. We passed by the local pottery tent. She held up a vase. This one would look nice in the hallway, don't you think? I wanted to shout. To ask her if Gavin would like it, too. Instead, I smiled thinly and said, sure. She would never see it coming. I had a plan forming. Quiet. Deliberate. But first, I needed confirmation. Something undeniable. Not just words on a screen, something that would leave no room for explanations or spin. Later that week, I placed a screen recorder on our shared tablet. She used it occasionally when her phone was charging. I knew her routine: morning coffee, check her forums. It only took 2 days. The footage showed her logging in, Same alias. New messages. She smiled. Typed, only a few more months. I can't wait to be done pretending. Pretending. That word stuck in my throat. I saved the footage. Copied everything to a flash drive. Labeled it vacation photos in case she ever found it. That night, she brought me tea. Said she loved me. I smiled. Because now I had what I needed. And soon, she'd know that pretending comes at a cost. The plan wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about truth. I spent 4 decades waking up beside a woman I thought I knew. If I was going to confront her, I wanted to do it with eyes wide open. No yelling, no begging, no half-baked emotions. Just facts. That's what she taught me to value. Ironically, Clara was always the level-headed one. Precise. Measured. But now I saw that same precision in her deception. The next Sunday, I waited until she left for her book group. She wore her green sweater, the one she always wore when she hosted. I checked the flash drive again. Messages, timestamps, screenshots, the video clip from the tablet, it was all there. She was still promising Gavin they'd move forward by Christmas. I printed 3 of the messages. Just enough to show intent. Not everything. I didn't want to scar Jeremy any further. I set them out on the kitchen counter, under her mug. The one with the little fox she'd bought on a trip to Vermont. She used to call it my cozy cup. Then I waited. Clara came back humming to herself, wind in her hair. I was at the kitchen table, flipping through a newspaper I didn't care about. She placed her keys on the counter, and froze. I didn't speak. Her eyes landed on the papers. Her hand hovered above them like she wasn't sure if touching them would make them disappear. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I looked at her. "You should sit down." She didn't. She read the first printout. Then the second. Then the third. Her face drained of color. I could hear the fridge humming. A neighbor's lawn mower down the street. Time slowed. Finally, she whispered, "You weren't looking?" "No," I said. "Jeremy found it." She closed her eyes. "I didn't want." "You didn't want to tell me." "I know." Silence. I could have yelled. I could have thrown the mug across the room. But I didn't. I stood. Walked over. Placed the flash drive on the counter next to the printouts. "That's a copy," I said. "The rest stays with me." She finally looked at me. And in her eyes, for the first time in years, I saw fear. "I wasn't going to leave you," she said. It was just something that helped me feel alive again. Alive. The word hit me like a slap. I asked her one question, "How long?" She hesitated. "Clara." 11 years. That number lodged in my chest like a splinter. 11 years of shared beds, shared holidays, shared lies. Was it ever real with me? I asked. She stepped back, tears welling. "You were my best friend, Ethan. But somewhere along the way, I became invisible." No apology. Just an explanation wrapped in blame. I nodded. "Then it's time," I said. "For what?" she asked, her voice small. "For you to stop pretending." I walked upstairs. Packed a bag. Just enough for a few nights. I wasn't going to slam the door or storm out. But I wasn't going to share a house with someone who could stare into my eyes every day and still craft love letters to another man. She followed me, whispering my name. Pleading now. "Ethan, wait. Don't do anything rash. We can talk." "We've talked enough," I said. You've had 11 years to say something. Her face crumpled. I paused at the top of the stairs. Looked back. You weren't invisible. You were just somewhere else. Then I left. I drove to a small roadside inn 2 towns over. Old place. Smelled like cedar and old quilts. I didn't sleep much. Just stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I missed. Everything she took. The next morning, Jeremy called. He'd spoken to her. She's a mess, he said. But she admitted everything. I nodded, even though he couldn't see. She's scared, Dad. So am I. He was quiet. Then he asked the question I'd been dreading, and what are you going to do? I told him the truth, I don't know yet. But I'm not going back. Not like this. I needed space. I needed to remember who I was without her shadow. Back in Maple Ridge, Clara texted me 3 times. Then an email. She wanted to explain. To meet. She said she'd made mistakes but never stopped loving me. But I knew better now. Love doesn't live in the dark. Love doesn't hide behind usernames and hotel rooms and sweet nothings typed to a man across state lines. She wanted forgiveness. I wanted accountability. So I hired a lawyer. I didn't tell Clara about the lawyer right away. I didn't need a scene. I needed leverage. The firm I chose wasn't flashy, just a quiet office above a bakery downtown. The kind of place that smelled like old wood and quiet victories. When the attorney asked why I was there, I slid the flash drive across the table and said, 38 years. 11 of them a lie. She didn't flinch. She'd seen worse, probably. But when I told her Clara's affair spanned over a decade, and that there were digital records of everything, names, posts, even financial breadcrumbs, she leaned forward. This isn't just emotional, she said. This is documented. I nodded. That was the point. She walked me through options, separation agreements, asset division, legal strategies. She mentioned that long-term infidelity paired with concealed funds often tipped settlements. I wasn't chasing revenge in court. I was chasing control. For once, the narrative wouldn't be hers. That night, I returned home. The house felt wrong. Too familiar, too quiet. Clara was sitting on the couch, wearing the grey cardigan I gave her for our 35th anniversary. I used to love seeing her in it. Now it felt like a costume. "You back," she said softly. "Not for long," I replied. She exhaled, a sound somewhere between relief and fear. "Ethan, please. Don't do this like strangers." "Strangers?" I almost laughed. "I've been living with a stranger for 11 years." She didn't answer. I walked past her, into the kitchen. She followed, hands trembling. "I ended it," she said quickly. "With him. It's over." "Clara," I said evenly, "you didn't end it because you loved me. You ended it because you got caught." She flinched. That silence between us grew so thick, I could almost hear the years breaking apart. I took out a single envelope from my jacket and placed it on the table. She stared at it like it was a live grenade. "What's this?" "Legal notice," I said. "I've spoken to a lawyer." Her face drained. "Ethan?" "No. Listen. I didn't raise my voice. I gave you my youth. I gave you a home, a family, a future. And you gave someone else a secret life. I won't be your safety net now." She covered her face with her hands. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. 11 years isn't an accident." Tears came. For years, I'd have folded at that sight. Reached for her hand. "Not anymore." I didn't stop loving you, she whispered. I just needed something that made me feel alive again. There it was again. Alive. That word. Like I was a mausoleum she'd been trapped inside. I stepped closer, but not to comfort. Just to look her in the eyes. You killed what was alive in us a long time ago. You just didn't bury it. You let it rot. For a second, she almost said something back. Then she didn't. Just cried quietly, like a woman who realized the script she'd written in her head had just burned. I told her the conditions. I'd be moving out for good. I'd be filing for separation with asset division on the table. Jeremy already knew, and I wasn't protecting her reputation. Not anymore. She could explain the truth to family herself, or I would. She stared at the floor. You really leaving? I already did, I said. The night I found the truth. She asked, do you hate me? I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't. Not exactly. Hate would mean I still felt tethered to her. What I felt was colder. Cleaner. Like walking out of a burning house and not looking back. I said, no. But I can't respect you. And I can't build anything on that. Her shoulders collapsed inward. For years, I'd imagined growing old with her. Coffee on the porch. Lazy Sunday walks. Now I saw myself alone, not because I wanted to be, but because at least that version of life would be honest. I walked out again that night, but this time I didn't pack light. I'd already moved my essentials. This was just closing the door. Jeremy met me at the inn. I told him everything. He didn't say much, just put a hand on my shoulder. She tried to call me, he finally said. She wants me to talk you out of it. She lost that right, I answered. He nodded. Yeah. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But when betrayal stretches over years, it doesn't explode. It erodes. By the time it's revealed, the well of tears is already dry. I sent the paperwork the next morning. Clara didn't contest. Maybe she was too stunned. Or maybe Gavin was her plan B and it just crumbled. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. 2 weeks later, she sent me a letter. Handwritten. 4 pages long. I didn't open it. The truth had already been said. I kept the letter on the kitchen counter of my rented place for 3 weeks. Unopened. Not because I was scared of what she wrote. Because I already knew every word inside it. Regret. Explanations. Nostalgia weaponized. The truth was, after 38 years, Clara had taught me to read her without needing to hear her. And now, I could finally do that without being trapped by it. The legal process moved faster than I expected. My attorney said it was because she didn't contest anything. She handed over every document, signed where she was told, didn't push back on dividing the house. It was almost eerie. Like she knew she'd spent all her bargaining chips on a decade of lies. Jeremy came with me the day I signed the final papers. We didn't say much. He'd stopped trying to fix us. I was proud of him for that. Some sons would have begged their parents to stay together for the family. But he'd seen the rot. He knew I was choosing self-respect over shared holidays. When I left the courthouse, it was cool and grey, the kind of afternoon where you either feel broken or free. I felt both. 3 days later, Clara texted me again. Just 5 words. Can we talk? Just once. I didn't owe her anything. But part of me wanted to look her in the eye, not to reconcile, but to finish what she started. We met at a quiet diner on the edge of town. She wore that same grey cardigan. It hung off her like a memory too heavy to carry. I ordered black coffee. She ordered tea, like she always did. She didn't speak at first. Just twisted the napkin between her fingers until it tore. Finally, she whispered, "I lost you long before you walked out, didn't I?" I stared at her. "You didn't lose me, Clara. You traded me." Tears welled in her eyes. I don't even know why I did half the things I did. It started with messages. I told myself it was harmless. And then I cut her off gently. "You don't need to explain. You made a choice." Over and over. She nodded. Slowly. "He's gone, you know. Gavin. When I told him it was over with you, he disappeared. No goodbye. Just deleted everything." I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a flicker. Because in the end, the fantasy man was just that, a fantasy. And she'd burned her real life for it. "I can't fix what I broke," she said. "But I want you to know I did love you. Even if I failed you." I let the silence stretch between us. Long enough for her to feel the weight of what she'd destroyed. Then I said the truest thing I've ever said to her. Love without respect is just a performance. And I stopped buying tickets. She started crying then. Quietly, shoulders shaking. For the first time, I didn't reach across the table. I just let her cry. Because those were her tears to carry. Not mine anymore. When the check came, I stood up. "Take care of yourself, Clara." She whispered my name. But I kept walking. People keep asking me if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger burns too fast. What I am is awake. I've spent the last few months learning who I am outside of being someone's husband. I started walking in the mornings again. Repainting old furniture. Rebuilding routines that aren't built around her schedule. Jeremy visits often. We talk, not about her, but about life. He's planning to start a family soon. I told him I want to be the kind of man my grandson can look up to, not the man who stayed quiet while his life was slowly rewritten behind his back. I still wear my wedding ring sometimes. Not because I miss her. But because it reminds me, loyalty isn't weakness. Trusting someone doesn't make you a fool. Betrayal does not define the betrayed, it defines the betrayer. I kept that flash drive, the one labeled vacation photos. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because the day I saw those messages, my world cracked, but it also let the light in. I'm not naive anymore. I'm not broken either. I've learned something people don't talk about enough. Sometimes walking away isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of dignity. Clara's letter is still on that counter. Unopened. It'll stay that way. Because I don't need to hear her version of the past. I lived it. And now, for the first time in a long time, I'm living mine.